on the left-hand side there. Somebody at the front wants to speak as well.
My name is Ashutosh De, working for CBM International as Regional Emergency and Disaster Risk Management Coordinator, South Asia. My question is that you raised very excellent thing, that is integrating disaster into development program, because due to climate change, disaster frequency are increasing day by day. If any disaster occurs, then all development program or livelihood asset will be destroyed. But my question is that, are you thinking about the disability inclusive disaster risk reduction, and how you will collaborate with the disabled people's organization? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So a question there on how we particularly connect with the disability movement. So let's get a third question, and then I'll let the panel answer that as they feel fit. So, lady there, yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Silla Janssen. I'm from the Netherlands, working with Caring Partners for Resilience. I was wondering if you could share any experiences that you have working with the government on accountability in terms of budget tracking, specifically experiences with the changing the prioritization to the community's needs. Thank you.
Okay, so a key issue there, just how inclusive is this kind of the participatory budgeting, and obviously a key issue there around the kind of resource allocation. So 3 questions there. Who wants to... Go on then.
I got a good one. I guess I can talk a little bit about how we do in the United States in disability, and how we see actually Sendai way improve compared to Hyogo or Yokohama strategies, including stakeholders in there. In US, especially in USAID, we have a specific policy for being inclusive, and similarly domestically we also have what we call whole community approach to include people who are disproportionately affected by disasters. That includes women, in some cases children, elderly, disability, and other groups. So we have different policies and programs developed specifically for this. I think disasters are great learning experience. Unfortunately, after Katrina, those many of the items were highlighted are experiences in both response and recovery activities. So we a little bit, change our programs, and we have certain regulation in implementing programs now for specifically for disabilities. I think I'm going to leave it there. So,
Glenn, do you want to on the disability issue, or?
I'll speak to the private sector,
Yeah.
but I'll touch
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. 3 good questions, and actually in a lot of ways maybe quite linked. Although maybe I can't speak directly to the experience in budget tracking, and I hope you do come up with some good examples and tell us about it, and share that experience widely. I think on the question with private sector, I think there's a lot of opportunity to start conversations, and I think it's easy to say these things in the abstract. Oh, we need to engage with the private sector, we need to build good relationships, and then we see it in our documents, and that's all very nice. But what seems to be lacking is what's the practical immediate next step? Who's going to talk to who? I'm not going to take the easy out to say that actually there's a lot of private sector organizations here that are actually very eager to work with civil society, with governments, etc., and I would certainly reach out to them. But I think that there's something that could be said for starting to unpack a little bit about what is the private sector. It's not a hegemonic whole. You've got the financial institutions and the insurance industry, and they have particular things that they focus on and that they understand. And so if you want to engage them, you learn a little bit about how they talk, and what are their interests, what do they bring to the table in terms of data information. but then maybe also unpack it a little further. Where are the agricultural, agribusiness, and natural resource management? It's a very different kind of conversation. And then the property developer, it's a very different kind of conversation. So just as a civil society organization trying to think about how do I approach that conversation, I would start thinking a little bit about, okay, well, what are the things we could do with this kind of organization, that kind of organization? And then what's the next conversation we would have in the country where I live? So that's one example. And I would just also point to the role that civil society in general plays can play as a neutral convener. And I actually going to point to Partner for Resilience just because I think it's a nice example of a sort of a multi-stakeholder initiative where you do have civil society and private sector and government all kind of working together. And the ways that civil society is actually able to invite these different stakeholders together to the table is a very important function of civil society. And actually, in some ways, there are things that you can do that governments themselves can't do. So I would look to that convening power and really and explore it. So I'll leave it there. Sorry to be so long. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's also worth pointing out, if you looked at the way that they've broken down the different stakeholder groups now, for this conference as well, we've moved away from what was called the major groups, and now we have different stakeholder groups which are a more disaggregated groups. So people with disabilities is one of those stakeholder groups. So it's just an example of how that's been picked up. So we're still a bit challenged by this budget tracking question. So we have diffuse expertise within the room on that, but also Happy is going to say a few words, and then we'll come back.
Okay. When we presented we did the survey, we presented the findings with the governments, and one of the findings is lack of integrations of DRR into developments. And so, but in Yogyakarta province we have the DRR action plans. So the governments ask the DRR forums to analyze the DRR action planning. So we make an analysis on how many budget allocations for disaster preparedness, for mitigations, for rehabilitation and reconstructions, that kind of things. And it's interesting that because most of the budget is for preparedness and response, but lack of budget for strengthening the regulations and also for enforce these regulations in the local levels. And also mitigations is also only have specific activities like greenings and also structural mitigations. So we have this kind of budget analysis, and then we make a strategy recommendations to how to allocate these funds based on the priorities of the findings, and this will fit into the new DRR action plan because the time frame is over now, and we are in the process of making the new one. So it's still on the process, but the analysis have been done. And also for the disability inclusions in the survey findings, we also work with the disability organizations. Though we admit that not among 9 provinces, not all of the provinces have the disabled organization.
Okay, very good. So some possible early indications of how the evidence base can start to influence the prioritisation of actions, which answers the question that Jazia's posed. Gentleman down here is eager to make a contribution as well, so let's just... is that on the budget tracking stuff as well? Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Happy, for sharing their experience. And in Bangladesh, I am Nasir from Action in Bangladesh, and we are working in a big consortium that is called NARI, National Alliance for Risk Reduction and Response Initiatives. And last 2 years, we are working with government how to reflect in our national planning, development planning, how we can make it risk informed. And for last 1 decade, we are working to make local government plan risk informed. But there was a missing link of national plan and local government plan. That's why we did conducted a study with government and the university, Dhaka University, and we come up with some recommendations how we can make it more risk informed and how the sectoral ministries can better reflect the upcoming needs of disaster risk. And from that study, we find that most of the ministries are investing in DRR, but they are not making segregation of their allocation. That's why which amount is utilizing for DRR, that is not that much clear. And that absence of that clarity actually lessen the government capacity to bargain at international level. So this is the area where civil society can support their respective government to come up with better integrated plan and better reflect in their national plan, which would be more risk informed.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Chizit.